This episode of Bright Hearth is brought to you by Garlands of Grace and our supporters at patreon.com.
Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as is fit in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives, and do not be bitter against them. Colossians 3:18 and 19. He commands wives to be subject. He requires love on the part of husbands, and that they not be bitter, because there is a danger lest they should abuse their authority in the way of tyranny. Excerpt from page 219 of John Calvin's Commentary on Philippians, Colossians, and Thessalonians, translated by William Pringle.
Hello! Welcome back to Bright Hearth, everybody.
That was the chipperest.
I just had my OJ, so I'm feeling whoop, whoop, whoop. Pretty sassy. Don't want to be sassy. What do I want to be?
You're feeling chipper.
Chipper.
You're feeling chipper as a chipmunk.
I'm getting enough sleep again, by the way, that I'm waking up before my alarm again.
Praise the Lord.
Which hasn't happened since before I got pregnant.
Wow.
So it's amazing. I feel really thankful.
You got to be thankful for the little things when you're
More
coming to the
reading
end
time.
of pregnancy.
It's true, you do.
Because it's, comfort can be...
I don't know if I've ever felt this good sleep-wise. Dun, dun, dun. Enter the stomach flu.
There have been some families throwing up projectile vomiting in the church, and we're about to leave for Reformation work.
I'm really hoping that that's not us, though, because we did have throwing up last week, so maybe that'd
be bad.
That's it. Anyways,
well,
I'm here.
Welcome back, everybody, to Bright Hearth. We're glad you're here with Chipper Lexy, and I'm, as always, joining you, the host, Brian Sauvé. And we are here at the Sauvé Homestead to talk about 10 things only a husband can do, and we should probably explain what we mean by that. So the idea for this episode actually came from one of my Facebook friends, John Michael Clark, and he does a thing called the Family Captain, and which is kind of like helping men learn how to lead their homes and things like that, and I think it's really helpful. So he did a short little video months and months ago about talking about this concept that there are things only a husband can do and things only a wife can do. And the way he explained it was really helpful and got me thinking about this concept. This was months ago, but I've been noodling on it now for that time, and I just think it's a really helpful way of thinking about marriage and the productive Christian household as things. There's a lot of things going on in the house, a lot of tasks and duties and pressures and stresses. It can be really easy for the husband and the wife to start neglecting things in the house that only they can do, to go do things and spend a lot of time doing things really other people could be doing and maybe are good things to do, but they're neglecting these centrally important issues. So we're going to do an episode today on things only a husband can do. Lord willing, next week, you'll hear an episode on things only a wife can do. In the example that the Family Captain gave there, which is such a Chad King title that I wish I could, I'm stealing it. You know what? From now on.
Does he wear a cape?
I'm the Family Captain now.
Does he wear a cape?
No, he
That's
could
what
not.
I think
He has a
of
sweet
as,
mustache.
Action figures.
He has a sweet mustache. He's side note. He's also the instigator behind 2 Christmases ago when I was forced to record the parody of Santa Baby.
Okay.
He was the original commenter. So anyway, go look on my YouTube channel if you want to hear more about that. The example that I would give here so you understand the concept, if you're still not quite grabbing onto what we're talking about here, is let's say that a husband knows that there are a lot of dishes to do in his home. And he's like, well, it would help my wife out if I started doing dishes more often. Or there's dishes and tidying. There's a lot of chores in the home. I'm noticing as the kids multiply, the chores, they just seem like there's always chores to be doing. And he thinks I'm going to be a really good husband. I'm going to spend 2 hours every night from dinner to bedtime doing chores.
Yep.
And he does it. He's killing it.
Cleaning, vacuuming, the whitest baseboards you've ever seen. He's in the bathtub.
The blinds, spotless.
The blinds.
Lexi hates blinds. That's why we don't have any. The blinds are, you could eat off the blinds if you were so inclined. But the only problem, listener, is that what he has neglected to do is recognize that is a crucial time for him as a husband and a father to be spiritually leading the home. And so 6 months goes by. Nobody's read the Bible to the kids. Nobody's done catechism. Nobody's reading them bedtime stories. Nobody's being a dad. Nobody's being a husband. Nobody's praying for the family every night.
Nobody's wrestling with the kids for fun.
Nobody's singing psalms at the end of the day.
Nobody's taking them on ice cream runs for fun.
Because he's doing the chores. Right? It's a mistake that he can make. He can get so caught up in tertiary things. that he actually neglects doing
Yeah.
the central things. Now, what I'm not saying, listeners, is that husbands should now go, listen, babe,
Yeah.
Pastor Brian told me I'm not allowed to do dishes because I have to be doing family worship at all times.
No, it can't, but it can definitely. I see what you're saying, because there are times when you help a lot. I mean, everyone helps pitch in after dinner.
Yeah.
We all make it work after dinner so we can all sit down for catechism. But
Exactly.
there are some times when I'm sitting there prepping breakfast or something, I'm like, man, he gets to do the fun part of reading out loud.
Yeah.
So there can be the temptation for the wife to want to make him do things
Yep.
that she knows in her heart, really, he needs to be doing these other.
It's highest value that I could be doing at 6 p.m. in our home
Making magic.
is doing the magic.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Joel Fitzpatrick, which is funny because I'm not super big fans of them anymore. No. But there was a book he recommended, and it was kind of all about how like father should be the magic maker in the home.
That's good.
And making the magic doesn't often line up with mom's ideals of what making magic looks like.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's donuts sometimes.
Yep. So it's a team effort we're talking about here.
Yes.
It's a team effort we're talking about here. And we're going to give there are more that we could probably talk about, but I jotted down 10 aspects, 10 things that only a husband can do, that if the husband and father does not do these things in the home, it's not as if someone else could step in and reasonably do them or should be doing them. And even if someone else could do some of them partially, he will be the one who makes the greatest impact by doing them, not someone else. And the first one is actually, we've already referenced it, and it's simply to lead the family spiritually. I read the Calvin quote there from his commentary on Colossians because Calvin gets at this, just kind of, these are the duties. He tells the wife to be subject, and he tells the husband to love and not to be a tyrant about it. But it basically just shows that the command implies that he needs to be leading the family. A wife can't submit to her husband if he's just a noodle, like if he's just he's passive. He's not actually spiritually leading the home, or just practically and spiritually leading the home. She can't submit to him because he's not providing any leadership to submit to. He's just a lump. He's present. Maybe he's physically there, but he's not leading. So he's to lead the family spiritually. This means that a husband and a father, he's the only one in the home who can take the fatherly lead in seeing through family worship, the catechism of children, praying and singing as a family, leading the prayer before dinner, just making sure that his home is spiritually centered on Christ, his kingdom, and the things of God that it is supposed to be. What happens for the wife if a husband doesn't do this?
I think it then becomes really easy for her to lose the anchor of like the household for the people, not the people for the household. Mm-hmm. So like if you were helping me clean all night, every night, I'd forget that the point of this isn't a clean house, but it's actually mature, happy souls in Christ.
Yeah.
Which mean that's why we don't have spick and span baseboards, is because we'd rather read books together at night, to be honest. A wife might be prone to nag him into doing this then, right?
Yeah, like I get messages all the time, and I think like we do, especially our Bright Heart accounts. Hey, my husband doesn't lead in family worship. He doesn't do any of the things you've talked about. He's really passive spiritually. And what do I do? And I think a lot of those wives, the temptation is for them to just be continually bitter towards her husband and want to nag him because he's not doing his job. And so he's actually putting a stumbling block in front of her now to be a naggy wife and be every night going, aren't you going to lead family worship? Like, are you going to do this? What's wrong with you? You suck. And that's not good. That's not healthy. That's not helpful. No. So he's neglecting this central thing that is his duty, and it's putting a stumbling block in front of his wife and his children. Another thing, the second aspect, 10 things only a husband can do, number 2, is something we referenced last week. And it's simply to make the call.
Yeah, that's a good one. Make the call. So she doesn't have to make the call.
Yeah.
So she's not tired of making calls.
Yes. So she's not decision fatigue or like, wow, he's just flops all over the place in the wind. He doesn't ever just say, yes, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's attractive when guys make decisions.
Yep. So next time, don't say, hey, what do you want for dinner? Say, babe, I'm taking the family out to Sonic. We're getting some foot-long Coney dogs.
Yeah.
She'll love it.
Rah, rah. Shake your pom-poms at him.
And then she's like, oh, goodness. Okay. Lexi was a cheerleader, everybody. Okay, she was an actual... Okay, anyway, moving on. Make the call.
I meant literal.
I know. He's got to make the call. We're just going to not acknowledge that it happened. You got to make the call sometimes, men. This is something only you can do because you're the one who has ultimate responsibility and authority in the home. Not ultimate, God has ultimate, but I mean, humanly speaking, you're where the buck stops. So on the budget, on the family education, on the church you go to, on the job decision, on the move, on the health decision, on the home birth versus hospital, all that stuff, husbands they're the only ones who can step in. Nobody else can just show up in your house and make the call. If you don't do it, who's left to make all the decisions?
She is.
She is. And trust me, men, you might think, I don't want to be domineering. Look, be humble, be patient, be kind. Do all the things we talked about last week about making decisions, but make the dang call.
Yeah.
You got to make the call. Number 3. You're going to like this one, babe. She doesn't know where we're going in this episode. By the way, I patriarched this episode outline. She has no idea. So number 3, protect your wife from woo-woo.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true.
What do we mean by that?
Yeah, only you can do that. Don't let her listen to the witches.
Keep the witches out of your house, man. Just keep them out. Throw the bucket of water on them.
Well, because only the husband is seeing. Is she on her phone too much at night?
Yeah.
Is she listening to too much weird stuff during the dinner hour? Is she drinking too many weird drinks all of a sudden?
Elixirs. Is everything fermented? I'm just kidding. Stuff can be fermented. But you know what I mean.
You know because you live with her, so you understand when things are getting a little weird.
Yeah, well, let me give you an example of a husband who totally failed to do this. There was a family in our church years ago that had a stillbirth. Okay. And the wife of another family, an older woman in the church, was obsessed with this certain type of supplements.
Yeah.
And she had the absolute audacity and gall to go tell the wife who had literally just had a stillborn baby, if you'd been on our supplements, this wouldn't have happened. And the husband was right there, knew this happened, did nothing. That husband should have absolutely said, I'm so sorry my wife said that. We're going to talk about this. He let her get completely obsessed where the Messiah was now these supplements. Yeah. Fill it in the blank. Essential oils, supplements. It can be things that have value even, guys. But when sometimes a husband needs to protect his wife and say, whoa,
it's
babe.
never appropriate to do that.
Just there are situations where sometimes because I think it's easy this is marketed really heavily to women, but also I think it ties into the nature and disposition and deception thing. That a husband has a duty to protect his home from woo-woo.
Yeah.
So only he can do that. Pastor should be involved, other people should, but he has the ultimate responsibility. Number 4, only he can pay the bills and provide for her to have enough to do the things she needs to do. So again, the government could pay the bills, other people could pay the bills, but only he's supposed to be the one. A man who does not provide for his family is denied the faith, is worse than an unbeliever. I know there are hard seasons, unemployment happens. Like, I understand, hard economy, inflation, stuff happens. But that's his duty.
Seminary is not a cause of unemployment, by the way.
Who said that? That was really weird. It was like a ghost.
A
ghost. You drink your orange juice before this episode and you're
telling you, I
being a little
feel
extra.
More awake.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's actually a good point.
I've talked to so many wives.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no kids for at least 5 years, have to get through seminary. I have to work full time.
Yep.
Really?
We're going to set up the
Give
family.
me a verse for that.
With enormous amounts of debt.
Show me where that's normal in history.
She's going to establish a career that's then really hard to disentangle from.
Yep.
Delay kids for 5 to 10 years. And because I'm called to the ministry. It's like, listen, my guy, you're called to provide. So go through slower, get a job. Get a vocation, get a trade.
Do it at a
tent
human pace.
Human pace.
Yeah, there's so much about seminaries that are not human scaled anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like one of those areas where a husband who doesn't do this, and only he can do this, is setting up his family.
Just bad habits for
all
young
sorts of
families.
bad habits. And all sorts of struggles for his wife where she's now going to be tempted to disrespect him.
Yeah.
she's going to be tempted. If he's again being a tyrant, tyrants demand bricks without straw. So the tyrant is the guy who says, honey, be a homeschooling, healthy food feeding, all of this stuff. And I'm going to make $19,000 a year. And I'm going to be frustrated when we go over budget. Like, you can't do that, man. You have to figure it out. You have to get the trade training. You have to do the work. Like, go figure it out. You can do it. I believe in you. I know you can do this. And provide it for your wife so that she can fulfill her duties that you're asking her to fulfill.
And it's just such a not true view of ministry to like have that be your ministerial training. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not real life. Real life is balancing family life mm-hmm. and work and church life and sickness on top. Like, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't model true ministry to me.
Yeah. You're a man who doesn't rule his house well, order his household well. How can you expect him to order the church well? This household of households. 1 Timothy 3, 4, and 5. So you got to provide. That's only you can do that. Number whatever we're on is sexually satisfy his wife. Only a husband can do that. Should, of course. People can sin in all these, but only he should. He's the one who needs to be pursuing and making sure that he's fulfilling the duties that Paul outlines in 1 Corinthians 7, where his body is not his own. It belongs to his wife. Her body's not her own. Don't deprive one another. This is important to mention because testosterone's diving. People are having less sex than ever in a lot of cases, and there are problems. Husbands sometimes actually need to be told, like, hey, you need to diligently be interested and pursue your wife. I know there's hard seasons, there's medical things, pregnancy, there's all sorts of reasons why every season's not going to be like every other season sexually, but it's a husband's duty to sexually satisfy his wife.
Yeah, we've had this question actually come up a couple of different times where people will say, like, we talk about the husbands, like wives needing to grow and pleasing the husband, but there's also the flip side of it. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Especially like you said, with testosterone being low, there's lots of reasons, but I think it was Calvin. It was in Phil Kaiser's book, Conception Control, where he mm-hmm. had some super based quotes, I think from Calvin, on a husband's responsibility to see the wife to full pleasure. It was super crazy. And then I actually, I think it was maybe dear sister Christiana yesterday posted a quote from Alexis de Tocqueville. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where he was
Democracy in America, Alexis de Tocqueville?
Yes. But that's why it was sort of weird. Yeah. I don't know where it was coming from, but he was talking similarly about if Christian women are this well pleased by their husbands, like we should all be wanting to see women live as queens. And it was in the context of sexuality. Yeah. And it was a very like, wow, I think there's more in like normal history. It seems like this was more admitted to than it is today for some reason. I don't know why. So yeah, I am pro that is what I'm saying.
What we're saying is, so again, we talked last episode about when you're first married, like you're young, you're figuring things out, you're not mature, you haven't completely got a handle on everything. But every husband's goal should be figuring out how to please his wife. So he's actually studying her, he's asking her, are there things that I can do differently or that I can help or that I can encourage you or, make you, satisfy you fully here? Is there omission happening? Like, am I, and just giving the invitation for that conversation sexually to be able to say, like, doors open for feedback. Let's make sure that we're both happy here and this should go both ways. The husband, though, needs to make sure that he's pursuing his wife. He's not just treating his wife like, a way that you could still be having sex but not sexually satisfying your wife.
Oh, yeah.
Is just treating her kind of like, whenever I want to, we do, and he's not actually taking the effort.
That's what I think the Calvin quote was about. It was like a husband who is doing that to his wife, who's not practicing self-control in this way. Yeah. He is robbing her.
Yeah.
I think that's the context.
He's not also holistically learning how to give a wife the emotional safety and freedom and space, and like everything, like the environment that they're in, the way he's treating her through the day, so that she's free and undistracted sexually when the time comes. I probably should have given a warning before we talk. Anyway, if kids are in the room, rewind, go back in time, And don't play that last section. Well, if you've been listening to Bright Hearth for any length of time, you know that we are all about productive Christian households, supporting one another in business endeavors worth doing, and we're all about modest, feminine Christian women, masculine Christian men. So we're so excited to be partnering for this episode of Bright Hearth with a sponsor, Garlands of Grace. Garlands of Grace makes beautiful feminine head coverings, whether you're wearing a head covering or a headband just for fashion reasons or as a covering for 1 Corinthians 11 sort of matters. We'd really commend them to you. And Lexi, we were just looking at their organics line. What do you think about that?
It's very cute.
They are very cute.
They have a lot of floral prints, and I think it's really unique to find companies that are willing to even go the extra mile and use organic fabric. So
yes, we know that our listeners are not just interested in getting the cheapest, quickest, flimsiest things they can get, but they want to get quality products made that are going to support Christian households. And so we would commend these ladies to you and their company. You can head to garlandsofgrace.com and you can see a huge variety of head coverings, head wraps. They have them for women as well as girls. And they also have those volumizers. What are those again?
They help keep your head covering in place so it's not slipping off of your head.
Yes. And if, Lexi is taking care of 5 children plus 1 in the womb on Sundays while I'm preaching and teaching and leading the service. So it is important that it's not slipping off of your head so easily when little people are kind of climbing and crawling over you. So that's been a help for you.
Yep, I love it.
Absolutely. Well, check it out there, garlandsofgrace.com. You can use the link in the description of this episode, and you support our show when you support them. So thanks for listening, and now we'll get back to the episode. Anyway, next one. Okay, and again, like I understand there's infertility, all of that asterisk, but only a husband can give his wife children. Lots of husbands deprive their wives of children.
Okay, yeah.
Because
of seminary.
Because of all kinds of reasons where they justify basically saying, I am going to expect my wife to marry me, be sexually free with me, and I'm going to intentionally make sure that we can't have children, even though she wants them.
I'm going to cut off this one great part of culminating joy
and guess
to
what?
A woman.
There's no way biblically to separate those two things the way that we have today. When Paul says, people don't think about this adequately, I think. When Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7 that you're not to deprive your spouse of conjugal rights, implied in that is that you are not free to indefinitely and permanently refuse your wife children if it's within your, like if there's no infertility or other issues that would prevent you, and then you trust the Lord, we pray, we do lots of godly examples of people struggling with barrenness, but it is a duty when we're talking about sexual duties that includes normal sexual fruitfulness.
Yeah, and you can see that in the Old Testament law, there was even protection surrounding that.
Yeah.
If a husband died and was not able to do that, there's protections in place so that the wife can still
so
bear children.
Yeah, so you're not free. Like, this is an issue of sin. Like, a husband is not free to tell his wife, I'm going to be married and expect sex, but you're never going to have children. I'm not going to allow that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ensure that there are no children. You're just simply not free. That's a part of marriage. It's actually an intrinsic part of marriage.
Design
that
feature.
Goes with that conjugal right. Conjugal right is also a right to fruitfulness, as is normative. So there's more that could be said on that, and maybe I think we are going to do an episode at some point.
I think so.
Surrounding some of the Phil Kaiser stuff.
People have spoken. Yeah.
You've asked us a lot. It's a good book.
Talked about.
Needs more. So in the future, we'll get to that. Next one. I think this is number 6. Only the husband can set and maintain the mission focus of the family. It's a part of leading the family, but he's the one who's saying, like, this is where we want to land in 30 years or 40 years. This is what our family's for. This is the legacy that we want to leave. This is the inheritance that we want to leave. This is the way we want to train our children and point the mission of our home. Only the husband can do that in the way that a husband can do that. That was a tautology, but
it's true. It's way true.
So
it's true because I think wives are geared towards thinking on fleshing things out on a small scale. And I use the word fleshing there because we're supposed to be putting flesh on the mission somehow.
Yeah.
And so I think what can happen sometimes is if wives get too bogged down in like all those small details, in an inordinate way, a husband can be saying, wait a second, that doesn't really matter because we're going to get to the mission either way. So maybe stop panicking about that.
So an example of this might be, you might say about your family, men, my goal as a husband is for our family to leave a legacy of robust Christian faith, financial freedom, and Christian wisdom.
Yeah.
And then you might give more flesh to those categories in a sub-statement. But you're saying that's what our family's for. Okay, reverse engineering that, making sure we're staying on course to that. Is the way we're dealing with money today going to result in that happening?
Yeah.
No, we need to change course. Is the way that I'm dealing with family worship and catechism and involvement in church going to lead to a Christian faith legacy? If not, let's adjust course. He needs to be the one who's monitoring that, setting that course and making sure you're staying on it.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't do that, he's, again, leaving it open for drift and frustration from his wife.
She's going to fill that, like God designed her to be led. So she's just going to fill that with something else.
Yep.
She's going to be led by Instagram or by some author, some feminist. She's going to be led by someone. So,
or she's going to be a godly wife who's frustrated because she's like, I'm trying to drag this family to this mission.
Yeah.
And my husband is he's not pushing the plow. He's not keeping us there. He doesn't have an eye on the horizon. He doesn't have his compass out. Right. Only he can do that. Another one, number seven, is to provide a safe harbor. And I'm talking about actual physical protection here of the home and the wife. The husband is responsible for the physical safety of his family within reason and under the providential rule of God. That's his duty. So go back and listen to the episode we did with Joshua Adams, gentleman in our church. A lot of great wisdom there, but physical safety is your job. Your wife shouldn't be like, oh, honey, there were some, weird men prowling around the neighborhood, and he's at work, and he's like, oh, yeah, that's no big deal. Don't worry. He should be like, go in, close the door, lock the door, whatever it is, or I'm going to come home. Like, that's his responsibility. He should be aiming to be within the providence of God, however the Lord made him, a dangerous man who's self-controlled, so he can protect his family. That means he shouldn't just be a huge fat slob who couldn't defend the family from an old grandmother. He needs to be within reason. I'm not saying obsessively. Every guy has to have a black belt and carry 3 guns everywhere he goes. But he needs to be thinking about this. This is actually one of his duties.
An example was, I don't know if you remember this though, was when you told me I couldn't hike out of cell phone range anymore.
Yeah, no more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I did that. I think I had 4 or 5 kids, and I got back on a trail where I realized, oh, I can't get in touch with anyone if something goes wrong, and I also can't carry 4 children on my own.
Yeah.
So I'm fairly independent when it comes to the outdoors, but I had to realize as I had more children, I had to listen to my husband.
Yeah, they're bad people. And also just dangers.
Bears.
Beats.
And toddlers, man. Toddlers.
And toddlers, oh boy. Yeah, this might be like, there are things that I wouldn't let Lexi do. Like, don't go here by yourself. Don't go to this kind of event without me there. We won't go places without being armed in some cases. Like, just thinking through.
There was that parade this summer. You were like, you can only go if so-and-so is there.
I couldn't go, and so I was, you have to be thinking about this as a husband. Like, and sucks. It absolutely sucks. This is true, but let's say it's politically heated time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The crazy thing was we were at that parade, and within like an hour of going home, we had found out about some other crazy, I don't remember, was it the guy that drove his car?
It was Waukesha.
Yeah, and so it was like, my husband was right. Like, he wasn't being unreasonable.
No,
he was trying to protect me.
And there's a balance on both sides here. Like, there's such thing as being paranoid, not trusting the Lord, but then there's wisdom. So a husband needs to be thinking about that, making sure his wife feels safe, the kids feel safe. The other side of this, number 9, is to be a shield. And this means like only a husband can protect his family from certain kinds of spiritual and emotional challenges. One example that I would give is that husbands need to be careful that they don't bring home every anxiety from work and put it on his wife. Like, as a pastor, I'd be negligent.
I've said
did
this
that to
so
Lexi.
many times. and I'm serious, and I don't know if people believe me, but I think I'm the most in the dark of all of the elders' wives at church, probably. And I think sometimes people get annoyed with it when they'll ask me questions like, I don't know. I stay out of that. Even like, as, you know, church ministry is expanding in different ways, in exciting different ways, that doesn't mean my hands are in it at all.
Right. You're not another pastor at the church.
Correct. I am absolutely
Nope.
not. And you've done that for many, many years, and it has been very helpful because only I can maintain a cheerful morale at home that can be a safe haven for you from work. So when I'm bogged down by that, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
I shouldn't expect you to carry. So like if there's ever
even
disagreement amongst elders or
counseling stuff, I used to do a lot of counseling with you, and that was very, very trying on me. Not that I never counsel, but we went through some hard counseling seasons, and then you realize like there's no reason elders can't counsel. Like pastor's wife does not have to be there for everything.
Yeah, that's right. With the ladies president, it's like, let's get two elders instead. Just not bringing like that disagreement amongst the elders at church. I'm not going to be like, oh, we're doing this thing, but this other pastor thinks we should do this, and I think we should do this. I work that out with the elders, and then we make a unified decision, and we go forward, and we don't do the, like, you do not want division. You don't want your wife thinking poorly of your coworkers, or you don't want, so a husband needs to make sure that he's a shield against some of these things that are not his wife's responsibility, like financial strain. Sometimes he needs to like be a shield. The last one, and I think this is very important, is that only a husband can handle certain types of external conflict in the home. One way that you'll probably understand what I mean is like family drama with extended families. A lot of the time, family, and we have this stuff come up all the time. People ask us, I have this conflict with my extended family. We're not on the same page about something. They're disappointed in us for making some decision with the grandkids, or something is going to move, or where we're going to live, or a job, or something like that. Or there's like bad history with maybe unbelieving family members and things like that. A lot of times the temptation is for a husband to be, especially if it's like his wife's family, to not adequately step up and deal with things directly. And maybe get on the phone and say, okay, I'm going to call mother and your mom or your dad or your uncle or your great grandnephew or whoever it is, I don't know. And I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah. It's a great kindness to a wife when a husband will do that, when he will step in and not do it graciously too. Don't be a turd.
He doesn't want to make more problems because you have to honor and make peace. And so sometimes it's important that a husband is asking himself when it comes to these extra, this could also be at work or other things, but the family is a common one. When there's external conflict, he needs to make sure that he's asking, to what extent do I need to go do something rather than ask my wife to do something, even if it'd be easy to let her do the thing. It's a temptation that husband, and sometimes it's also husbands they want to make sure that they're not causing more drama, and sometimes they're genuinely is. Sometimes he has to say to his wife, you need to talk to your dad about this, or you need to talk to your great grandnephew about whoever it is.
Well, and just the reality is, I mean, I've seen this time and time again with people I've counseled, like extended family members of women, of the wife in this situation. They will manipulate them in a way that they will not when they realize the husband is a wall.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
So
when they realize that they're not going to get away with it, if I do this, the husband's going to be on the phone with me tonight.
Yeah,
He's gonna be like,
exactly.
Hey, I heard that there was a disagreement. Let's walk through it. I want to make sure we're at peace.
Yeah.
Husband needs to be a peacemaker.
Not to be, again, don't be a jerk about it, but
sometimes too, this is also like, honey, you need to call your mom and apologize for the way you talked to her at the Christmas party or whatever. I'm making this up, guys. This is a completely made up scenario. This didn't happen. But yeah, sometimes this a husband needs to go, look, like you're so used to your family dynamic, but you were being rude to your dad or you were being rude to your brother.
No, you did tell me that once. Let the record show. Yes, you did. You did. You were like, hey, you need to apologize to your dad for that. And I really respected you for it because I was like, you're right, I do. And my dad was really grateful for it. So
it's true. Sometimes we get used to our families.
yeah.
And sometimes you can just it's sinful to just let your wife drift and like not know what to do.
You weren't rude about it.
Hopefully
But you weren't. You're just like, I really think you should probably just apologize for that. It wasn't the kindest thing you could have said.
Yeah,
So,
and this happens because
it helps.
life is complicated.
I do
and
think it
difficult.
helps to keep a wife accountable because when she is interacting with her own family, like you said, I'm sure it's the same for the husband, but they can just fall into patterns of like, this is how I acted when I was a teenager or whatever,
It's always been this way.
Which is why it's so helpful when a husband is to remind a wife, like, we're to honor and obey. I mean, we're to honor and respect our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And to actually maintain that standard and then not let her get away with being a Rudy Pants as entitled princess to them,
Yep, that's right.
So
it is very important that a husband does the things that only he can do because no one else can do them. I mean, it's obvious, but it's like, if you don't do them, man, like no one else can adequately do them the way as effectively in many of these cases as you could or ought to do. So next week, we'll be talking about the things only a wife can do. And we'll have the other side of the coin there, some overlap, but also some things unique to her vocation as a wife and a mother in the home. And we hope that will be helpful as well. As always, we really appreciate if you like the show and you find it helpful or to your church, your family, your marriage, that you would consider pitching in, helping us continue to make it possible. You can do that through our Patreon channel. We've got a link in the description there to support the show. We've got lots of rewards there. You'll get access to all of our backlog of the patron exclusive show we do called In the Kitchen, where we talk about usually things from the episode or other practical, helpful, granular, like hands-on applicational sorts of things. Everything from family home health binders to commonplacing and reading habits to just many different things that we think will be helpful to you there on our Patreon. We also try to answer questions there and be more available since it's more actually feasible rather than like every inbox on social media and things like that. So we try to keep up there. And at least one of our tiers, I think a couple of them, you get a sweet Feed the Patriarchy mug sent to you as our thank you if you do sign up to support the show. And that is we appreciate it. It's actually part of our living is through New Christendom Press that this podcast is affiliated with, our publishing house here in Ogden, and it also goes to support all of the work of New Christendom Press. So not just us, but also other families and employees that we have. So we appreciate that. If you find the show helpful, check that out for sure. Also, check out our conference that's coming up June 8th to 10th, Year of Our Lord 2023 here in Ogden, Utah. It's going to be a great time. We've got a special patron discount for tickets there as well. And there's a link to all the details for tickets and information there if you'd like to join us in Ogden this June. And it should be a good time. So thanks again for listening in on this episode of Bright Hearth, and we'll catch you next time.